Let's go upstairs by Mr. Krabby and see if he's eaten something because he's hangry. See if he's ready to get going. Are you unhangry now?
I suppose.
Okay.
Hey everybody, Chris with Legendary Customs based out of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Before we go anywhere, I want to show you something really quick. This is my beautiful bride. She is filming today for me like she does every day. And I was grumpy before and I want to apologize. So do you accept my apology?
Am I supposed to look in the camera?
So today we are going to go through how to install a universal in-tank fuel pump. On the 1958 Chevy Cameo, we are putting in, as you know, an LS engine. That takes a lot more fuel pressure than what you're going to ever get for a mechanical pump on the side of the motor. And of course, everybody knows that they don't even have a spot for a mechanical pump. The nice thing about the in-tank pumps, if you can make them fit in your tank, is they are quieter because the fuel around them helps muffle the sound than having them hang on the side of your frame. Now in some applications you have to hang it to the side of the frame. There's just no other way around it because the tanks aren't deep enough, and I'll show you some examples of that when we're going together to do this. Now, the kit that we're going to use is from Tanks. We have used them before, several times actually, and they are a really good universal system that fits almost every tank that is out there. Now, I'm going to take you step by step through this. First, set out your parts and pieces to make sure you have everything that you need to go forward. If you're missing something, make the call now, not after you have everything cut and going together. Now, first thing you want to do is measure the depth of your fuel cell that you're putting the universal fuel pump into. The second thing you want to do, believe it or not, is grab a cardboard box. Come on over here. The depth of that cardboard box should be the same depth or shorter than what you have for a fuel cell, because you want to make sure that the pan along with the support fits in it. So you go in, you clear, and you're good to go. Now my tank is slightly deeper. Grab another box. Let's say you have a 6-inch tank. Guess what? There is no way, no matter what, that you're getting this system into that tank. It just won't happen. So with all of that said, you want to find out exactly the size of hole that you need and if it's going to fit in the clearances that you have, because once you cut up your fuel cell, and if this doesn't work and you have a hole in your fuel cell, the next system that you buy might not have the same requirements for the hole. And then you have a tank that has a big cutout in it and you're just not going to be happy with yourself. Now, how do I know this? I've went down this road before where I had everything set up and I went to put it in and it just wouldn't fit. So what I ended up having to do is shorten this box by 1 inch. So there are adjustments that you want to make or can make, but you shouldn't have to. Just plan ahead so you make sure everything's going to fit. So with the tank system, you have the pickup tube, obviously. They send you an inline or an in-tank fuel pump with the accurate pressures, and a return tube. Now the return tube, the line that they sent, it's supposed to be within 1 inch of the bottom of the pan. You don't want it spilling out higher into your tank, because as you're going when you get below that amount or half tank or wherever it ends up, it's just going to create aeration in the fuel that's in your tank. You want to have it down and under the gas level in your tank, so you're not creating foam and such. Now, the piece that they sent with us is not long enough, even though it's from their kit. So I have another piece of high pressure fuel line. If you take and have the same situation that we do, that the kit that the piece they send in the kit is not long enough, do not use vacuum hose. Do not use just regular rubber line, because it will, well, it can disintegrate, clog up your filter, swell with the fuel, so it doesn't have the return any longer. Just make sure the piece that you grab out of your stock is for fuel line, not transmission cooler line, not water coolant line, not vacuum line, fuel line. Make sure it's designed to be in contact with gasoline. Anyway, so we've test fit everything to make sure it's going to work. We have done an inventory to make sure that we have everything that we need to put it together. Now let's go over to the tank itself. Okay, so we're at the back of the 1958 Chevy Cameo, and Joe has a fuel cell that is built for a 1955 through 1958, 59 actually, Chevy truck that goes in the back. This helps with a couple things. It gets the fuel cell out of the cab where they came from in the factory, and it distributes some of the weight in the back to get a little bit better weight ratio from forward to rear. You're never going to get a 50-50 weight ratio with a pickup truck like this, but this does help. So you want to take and measure the depth of your fuel cell, and I've already done this. In this particular one, from the top of the neck to the top of the can, we have 11/16 of an inch. The total depth from the top of this is 11 5/8 inches. So the pump from the top of this tank all the way to the bottom is 10 15/16 inches. So I am going to cut just a little bit more than that. I like to have the pan about a 1/16 inch off of the bottom of the fuel cell. So I have to cut off approximately a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to mount this right here, so then I'll be able to make that corner that I just showed you with the cardboard box. Now my wife asked a great question off camera. She's like, that looks like you can cut it for different depths of fuel cells, and that's exactly what it's for. This pan you can have all the way up to here, but this distance here is actually shorter than this pan. So getting it down through the tank, if you're hitting the bottom of the tank, you have to be able to make that corner to put it in. And you don't want your pan, let's say this is the bottom of the fuel cell, you don't want it way up, because you'll always leave an inch or two of fuel in your gas tank before your depth. Your fuel sending unit is going to say you're empty, so you'll run out of fuel this way. So that's what this is for. This pan is for the sloshing gas to create it, so it's controlled inside this smaller tank versus the big fuel cell. And then these are made so you can cut it to go into different depths tanks. But anyway, I'm repeating myself because the screw up that I'm pointing out is extremely expensive. If you cut your fuel cell and you can't make that corner, you'll hate the situation that you're in, because the only answer is to re-weld it closed and start over, and that just sucks. The next step is to go back over to the workbench, and we will trim the support arm of this to the proper depth, which is going to be a 1/16 under 10 and 5/16, which would be 10 and 7/8. Cut it right there, and it will be just barely off the bottom of the fuel cell. And then we'll assemble everything and slide it in. And there we go. This has a lock washer on it. So I'm going to do something that they don't even ask you to do. I'm going to hold it in place with that, and I'm going to put another 2 bolts there so this doesn't rock around. Perfect. So tighten this down. See, your tray is where it's supposed to be. This little hole here, when the gas level goes under this level, is what lets the gasoline into this area, and this area keeps it from sloshing back and forth uncontrollably. So I'll grab the wrench, tighten that up. I'm going to put in 2 more.
And just when you think you have all the tools you need, you don't.
Right, exactly. Okay, so the next step is to assemble this. Now, got this nice little pan. It just sits in there just right for you to finish the assembly. If you're going to use a sealer, we use Permatex. Make sure you buy the proper product that can be in contact with gasoline or diesel fuel, depending on what type of tank you're putting together. Silicone will not work. Regular gasket maker will work, but questionably for any amount of time. Yes, that stuff is made to be in contact with oils, but gasoline is more of a solvent on most products, so make sure you buy something that is good for gasoline. So you got the tape on there, just a little bit of sealant for an extra precaution. And when you put these in, make sure you clock them both so they're pointing the correct direction for when you install the tank. So this is the way my tank is going to sit. The engine is that way. I would like them to be facing the passenger side rail. So I'm going to go grab a wrench to do that with. Or maybe I'll just choose this one. So I am thinking just like that. Goes towards the front. Let's go check this out. We're going to do it that way. So we're going to go at 90 degrees. So the fuel line will go here and down. They are offset, so you can have them both clocked at the exact same position, and they will run beside one another. This is one thing you don't want leaking all over everywhere. Gasoline. And these are pipe threads, so as they get tighter, or as they go in, they get tighter. You don't want to over tighten them, strip stuff or break stuff. But you also don't want it to leak. You should wear gloves because this is sharp. And I'm not wearing gloves, so I'm being stupid. And give me one of those gloves. You don't want to tighten it up and then back it out. There you go. So you have them clocked both in the same position. This is your return line. This is your supply line with pressure. One cool thing that we use is from a Corvette. From a C4 Corvette. Which is 4th generation. So that would be 82. And I believe it went all the way up into the 90s. But their fuel filters are built in with a fuel regulator. So you have your fuel line coming in, you have your fuel line going out to the engine, and then this reduces it down to 56 constant pounds per square inch is what's required by the LS motor. So at 56, anything that's extra will go right back to the return tank, and it just makes it very simple. You don't have to put a adjustable fuel regulator, fuel pressure regulator anywhere in the inline. This does everything for you. Just make sure to ground it. So this is all set up. We got our intake and we got our return. Put this upside down. Remember how I said the return line is too short? Take your correct length one, which has it approximately 1 inch off the bottom of the pan, and put it on. Don't worry about it being wobbly, because that is going to be put in with a zip tie to hold it in place and support it. Make sure to use the hose clamps on there. Make sure your hose clamps are tight. Okay. That's not falling off. Okay. So now the distance from the face here to the bottom of the pan is exactly 10 7/8 of an inch. So the distance from here to the bottom of your fuel filter will be 10 7/8. So we'll have to slide this on, slide her on here, put the fuel filter on, and this piece will need to be cut to the depth of your tank. So I've assembled everything so I can determine where to cut my pickup tube.
Did you measure twice?
I measured 3 times.
Cut once?
I haven't cut yet, so I'll tell you if I did it right after I do it. Anyway, in my case, from this surface to the bottom of here, I need it to be 10 7/8 of an inch. That gives me a 1/16 of a clearance between the bottom of this and the tank. You don't want this resting on the bottom of your fuel cell, because you just don't want any rattling and crap. Probably wouldn't make any rattle, but a 1/16 of an inch of fuel isn't going to hurt anybody's feelings. So then, your fuel filter goes in the bottom of the control pan. Literally sits in the bottom. Doesn't have to be off, sits in the bottom. Pull the cap off. That is your pressure. Fuel pump pulls it through here, through the filter, up through here, out to your engine. Literally, you can just set it down in there. I don't know if you can see that. And I already marked the line to the height, so I know exactly where to cut.
Did you cut it the right length?
Cut it the right length. So, everything is in there, everything's dangling around. We're gonna now secure it. One thing I forgot is what size bolt they want me to zip tie it with. There's a saddle that comes with it. It's a 1-inch bolt. Now for the top, these have a rubber O-ring on them, so when you tighten it down, it helps it from leaking fuel. So 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So, this is not it for sure. So they did not have in their kit the one bolt that we need. So, I will just grab one. All right, they didn't include the kit, the bolt in the kit, so I have one. This is the cradle for your water pump. The zip tie holds the cradle, or water pump, to your fuel pump. The zip tie holds the cradle on the back of the fuel pump. There's 3 different size zip ties in there, 2 different sizes. You want to use the big one to hold this in place. I forgot to tell you, this foam thing right there, it goes onto the pump. Helps quiet it down. It's not this tight. And my washers over here. So I put the cradle on the back of the fuel pump, put the zip tie on it. I did it in the wrong order. When I was looking for the 1-inch screw or bolt, I forgot that you should put the bolt to the cradle first and then put the zip tie around. Easy fix. Take a vice grip, grab onto your bolt, and then just take a wrench, tighten it on. Make sure to use a lock washer behind that bad boy. Now, not your traditional lock washer, the ones with the many, many little teeth like this. That will hold that in position. You don't want that falling out when you're going down the road and your fuel pump going all over the place. You might not realize it at first, but over time, at this point that it's hanging from, that will wear out from it bouncing around and it'll eventually snap off. Your fuel pump will be working, won't have any fuel pressure, and you'll go dead on the road. So, once you get it in place, cut the zip tie and you're good to go. Now this is flopping all over. They provide zip ties for that. Remember, this is supposed to be about 1 inch from the bottom of the pan. There you go. Cut off your excess. Now, what powers your pump? Electricity. It only goes in one way. Before you plug it in, feed your wires to the top. Now, as you tighten these down, these actually, just like in plumbing, they tighten around the wire. So that's what seals the fuel from coming out. These are easily snapped off. So when you're tightening them, don't tighten them like you're a big Popeye or anything. Just nice and very snug. Make sure this is snapped in. You don't hear it click. It's not far enough. Pull it. Make sure it doesn't come out. You're golden. Now, everything is in like it should be. Take another zip tie. And zip tie your wires to your pickup tube. Or not your pickup tube, yeah. Okay, so this is all set up. Put your pan in. Drop your bolt through there, tighten it up at the correct height, and you're ready to go. Make sure that this is facing into your pan. It's the only way it's going to work, so you don't have to worry about that. Just line it up perpendicular to your pan and you're good to go. Now, when you put a fuel pump in your pan, you're supposed to put it as far to the back of your fuel cell as possible. So when you're accelerating, the fuel always goes to the back. You want the fuel there so it doesn't starve out. Another thing is, never, ever, ever test a fuel pump dry. They're typically tested from the factory. They know they work. You're good to go. Don't test them dry because you can literally burn them up or do damage to them when they're dry. So the only time that you're going to put this together, hook it up, and turn the switch where it pumps is when there is gasoline or diesel in the fuel cell, so you're not overheating things and burning stuff up. Very important. So anyway, that's the assembly. Later we are going to cut the hole in the fuel cell and show you how we hook things up. That right there is left over for a vent. Make sure you put a rollover adapter on your vent hose, so if the vehicle rolls over, it's just not spewing out gas. It'll actually has a check valve in it that if it ends up upside down, the gas will go out, the check valve will go in place, and it will stop the fuel from flowing. But when it's right side up, it allows air to go into your tank, so when this is sucking fuel out, it's not creating a vacuum and collapsing your tank. I actually had a gentleman bring in a car to us that his gas tank looked like an aluminum can all crushed in. And he said his car ran perfect for about 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, and then it would just die and he'd be stuck by the side of the road, and for no reason whatsoever, after sitting there for 20-30 minutes, he could start the car back up again and drive it for 15-20 minutes, and then it would die. Well, without a vent in your gas tank, you're sucking all the air and the fuel out of it, and it's creating a vacuum inside, and pretty soon your fuel pump can't pull any more out. There's just no return going in to displace the fuel that's being used. And when he was sitting on the side of the road, his gas cap would slowly allow air to go in, and his gas tank would expand a little bit, but it was so crushed we actually had to put in a new gas tank for it. So anyway, that's what it's going to look like. All right, we are at the back of the fuel cell of the 58 Chevy Cameo pickup truck, and we are finishing putting in the in-tank fuel pump. All right, so what you have left, you have the rubber gasket, or excuse me, cork gasket. One very important thing when you're putting this on, put it on just like a tire. Put a bolt in directly across from it, bolt in directly across from it, and rotate around. Don't do it one by one. You don't want this to bunch up. You want to put it down slowly. So when you put the first one in, don't take and run it home. Just a little by little, bring it down slowly. You have a good seal, Same with everything else. You want to put a gasket maker material on here that is good to be in contact with gasoline. This should take care of it, but you put just a little bit of a bead on there just for a precaution. Now is the only time to do it. And then of course you have your retaining ring. This goes on the inside of the tank. That's what this is cut out for, so you can slip it into the hole and rotate it in. Now, some people will weld this into place. That's perfectly fine. You can do that. That is actually one of the applications, the installations that is acceptable with this. I am not doing that. So I'll be putting it in. It comes with one long screw. That's where you get it started. You bring it up and then you can do the rest. But we'll go through that. First thing you want to do is find your location. When you're picking your location for your pump, make sure that the sending unit is not in conflict with it, and make sure that, again, that it clears everything going in. The spot that I have chosen is directly halfway between the pickup unit and the edge of the tank. It'll fit perfectly there. And then of course, the pickup unit itself, I'm gonna have going in the opposite direction. No big deal. Everything's gonna work out perfect. So that's what's left. Drill your hole. This one is a 4.5 inch hole. Refer to your kit directions. It's gonna tell you exactly what you need. We're gonna have metal filings everywhere. They're gonna be dropping into the tank. Remember to clean out the tank when you are done. Doing the final measurements for the tank. Basically what I did is I measured the back of the tank where it's gonna go in to the support bar, halfway, the fuel sending unit to the edge of the tank, halfway. I found my halfway point. The tank pickup is basically 6 inches. So what I do, just to make sure, is I went 6 1/4 inches, go dead center, and I make sure we have clearance all the way around and no conflict. Now, doing this might seem like an extra step that's not needed. That 3 minutes that it took me to do that is a hell of a lot better than not doing it, drilling the hole, and then being caught at the end with a hole that you have in the wrong spot. So yes, I'm showing you things a little bit more detailed than what normally would be done, but I am confirming that there's no conflict. Something else to keep in mind is where you're putting the pickup unit, the fuel pump itself, you don't want anything on top of it because you do not want to have your electrical wires on the bottom of the car or the bottom of the truck bed where they will eventually wear through the protective material, arc out, and end up with a problem. So always make sure you have clearance on all sides and on top. Okay, we have everything marked. We know where center is. I actually drill a hole for the pilot hole for the hole saw. That way, you know, you have a 4.5 inch disc on there. You don't see the center. You don't want that going anywhere. So I actually drill a pilot hole for the pilot hole drill bit. Turn on the vacuum. Catch as much crap as you can right now. Drill your pilot hole, change over to your 4.5 inch hole saw. All right, now I have my 4.5 inch hole saw, pilot hole, everything marked. Turn on the vacuum, catch as much crap as you can, drill it out. Okay, as you can see, with a hole saw this size, there's a lot of torque. Make sure you're nowhere near finished paint, where the wrench or the drill is going to swing around and catch something that's finished. And something that I forgot to mention in the video, I measured it out, but forgot to mention it, some fuel cells have baffles in them. This one, there's a baffle at the thirds in the tank. Make sure that you're putting in your fuel cell pickup and your fuel pump in a place where you have a baffle in conflict on the left or the right side. So that's very, very important. Again, getting that down and in is critical. So, all the precautions that I took, see if they paid off. Thank goodness they did. So now we know exactly where it's sitting. I have a circle drawn in pencil, so I know where to center this over the hole. And now we have to go around and mark all the areas. We have to drill 18 little holes to hold it in place, but it fits just as it should. My father used to tell me, if you're not bleeding, you're not working. Well, I'm bleeding, so I must be working. Anyway, the next step, drill little holes. I'll show you that. Take your ring, center it up on the circle that you drew. If you don't have a set of transfer punch sets, you need them. You want it to fit through there tight. And then of course, you want to take your vice grip and you want to lock this bad boy into place because you don't want it to move. You got 18 holes that you have to line up perfectly. 3-4 of them off, you're not going to have a good day. You have it vice grip in place, it's not going to move, make sure it's tight. And you're going to take your transfer punch, tight fit into each one of those holes, and you're going to mark with a little tiny dent that will guide the drill bit 18 times in this case. So now we have 18 marks. Now to drill 18 holes. When you take the punch to mark your spots, you don't need to drive it home hard, just a little tap. It's a very pointed end on here. It's going to make an indentation with just a little bit of force, and you don't want to bend these. Okay, drilled out all the holes. As I drilled, I made sure this was centered on each one. Don't do them all. After it's drilled, it's harder to adjust. They worked out perfectly. Vacuumed everything out. Take your flashlight, look into the fuel cell. Make sure there's no shavings in there. You want everything to be out of there. And now we are set to put in the actual fuel pump itself. This can be a pain in the ass. Hole drilled, big hole drilled, little holes drilled all the way around the outside. Did a dry fit, made sure everything lined up. Now is when it gets messy. Get some gloves. The sealant that they have for contact with gasoline is some sticky stuff. So anyway, you're gonna want to put it on the cork area. All the way around, both sides. And I think what I'm going to do is slip that into the tank first. Just a nice bead. Line up the holes. Take your fuel pump. Too much shit. Have it ready to go. Then what I do is I take one of the shorter ones and I start the retaining ring on the back side. Down in the tank, just to hold it in place. So now it's there. Fish this in, and then I'll use a 2-incher. Then I'll use a 2-incher to suck it up. Okay, so after all that, takes time. They're all snug. Now you got to work a cross pattern back and forth, snug, and then finish it off by hand. So now they're all snug. Gasket has good contact all the way around. Clean it up a little bit. It is sealed, ready to do the pumping. And remember, do not prime or do not run this dry. You'll burn out your pump. It doesn't take but seconds. That's all I can say. Again, Chris, Legendary Customs, based all across Wisconsin. If you like what you see, hit the like button down below and subscribe to our channel. Share these videos. It helps us out quite a little bit. And comment down below. Every time you comment, it actually does help us out. So we appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in. Gonna clean up my mess, go on to the next project. But this 1958 Chevy Cameo is almost ready to be assembled. Till the next one.